Chicago conquered the NFC North, crashed the playoffs, and gave Los Angeles absolute hell in the divisional clash. Yet, critics insanely ignore this looming juggernaut. Meanwhile, star phenom Caleb Williams storms into Season 3. Digest that reality. Our signal caller transformed into an absolute weapon late last year, and now he is mastering Ben Johnson's master playbook too. This brilliant mind electrified this scoring attack from the start, unleashing absolute mayhem across the gridiron. Plus, those vicious trench warriors who paved the way are returning to dominate again. Ironclad guards Joe Thuney and Jonah Jackson remain rock solid. When Drew Dolman unexpectedly quit, Poles was frosty. Instead, he poached Garrett Bradbury from New England, a fierce center who shared the trenches with Thuney to clinch a Super Bowl ring. Our squad boasts a lethal foundation rivals would sacrifice their whole draft class to acquire. And this firepower is barely warming up. Now, shift over to the defense right now, because that is where the true chaos really ignites. Dennis Allen is not just making minor tweaks here, he is forging an absolute weapon built for speed. Each explosive move this spring, spanning from aggressive linebacker additions to relentless new defensive backs, screams exactly what the Savage goal is. Montez Sweat, alongside Austin Booker, still protect the edges. Yet behind them, fresh faces arrive. The entire mindset is evolving. If you are ignoring the absolute madness brewing inside the walls of Hollis Hall, September will punch you squarely in the mouth. However, let us dive into the dark secret nobody dares to speak about. Massive doubts loom over this crazy spring, heavily dictating whether our squad reaches ultimate glory or crashes into the dust. An elite analyst actually labeled this entire organization broke on live broadcast. Huge blockbuster trades remain available, capable of morphing the team instantly. At pick 25, a pristine rookie exists who perfectly completes this savage defense. Plus, several guys currently repping the Chicago uniform could be shipped out super soon. Therefore, before you judge if our squad is actually built to take it all, you absolutely must hear the hidden truths backstage, since the imminent actions by Poles could change absolutely everything. But initially, absolutely smash those like and subscribe buttons for non-stop Chicago and peak NFL content. Let's break 300 likes here. The heavily underrated free agent grab is Devin Bush. 3 years, $30 million, and $21 million secured. That equates to $10 million every year for a defender who simply dominated across the league last year with the Browns. He erases tight ends. He punishes off the edge. He covers sideline to sideline, boasting a 44 speed mark most rival linebackers just do not have. Here is the craziest part though. Tremaine Edmonds joined New York for 3 years, $36 million, and you could easily argue Bush performed way better recently. Chicago snagged the far superior star for fewer dollars. That rarity almost never occurs during free agency, yet Poles handled it beautifully. Next up is Kobe Bryant, a talent who should electrify every Bears fan. 3 years, $40 million to land a Super Bowl winning safety, holding 4 picks, 66 tackles, plus 7 pass deflections in Seattle lately. He dominated as a corner initially, when Mike McDonald and his elite Seattle staff transitioned him to safety. That insane versatility is precisely what renders him absolutely lethal. Since Kevin Bard and Jaquan Brisker departed in free agency, this move became essential. It was fully required. Bryant marches in as an instant starter, injecting this defensive backfield with a fierce playmaking spark they so desperately craved. The real glue connecting this puzzle is the mindset evolution. We are done with the sluggish, grinding defense from 2 seasons back. Dennis Allen demands speed. He needs absolute predators flying across the turf, forcing brutal turnovers and rattling quarterbacks before pressure ever arrives. Yet boosting speed at linebacker and safety only solves half the equation, because one specific defensive unit still bleeds from a catastrophic gap. Fortunately, the transaction that could easily become the absolute steal of the spring just slid under the radar. Jedrick Wills Jr., the 10th selection from Alabama in 2020, secured a 1-year, $1.2 million deal. Pure thievery. This is a certified first-round freak whose career stalled for 2 miserable years due to devastating knee and hip surgeries. However, training camp whispers confirm he is fully healthy. Now he enters Ben Johnson's realm, alongside master offensive line guru Dan Rocharo and a brilliant staff who fully evolved Jordan McFadden and Theo Benedict into absolute weapons just last year. If this staff revives just 70% of his original dominance, Chicago secured a starting blindside wall while AZ Trapo rehabs that hurt knee. And if he flops, you simply release him and walk away with 0 financial penalty. It is the ultimate bulletproof play. Landing Kif Raymond is another stealthy move, curing twin issues instantly. He effortlessly assumes Dion Duiver's old punt return role while drastically boosting Zacchaeus' former wideout spot. wrapped in a bargain $5.1 million deal. The best part? Raymond completely mastered Ben Johnson's epic playbook during his Detroit days. Thus, absolutely zero learning curve exists. He arrives completely ready for Game 1. Acquiring Cam Lewis from Buffalo after his 6-year Bills era gives our secondary an ultimate Swiss Army knife weapon. He locks down safety, nickel, or emergency perimeter spots. Basically, he replaces C.J. Gardner-Johnson at half the expense. True, these smart signings will not dominate a press conference. Yet combined, they prove Ryan Poles possesses absolute brilliance in constructing rosters for cheap. One massive raging rumor still haunts him, however, refusing to die down. Adam Schefter recently appeared on ESPN Get Up and dropped a brutal bombshell that violently threw the Bears fan base into a spin. He explicitly stated, Chicago possesses literally zero remaining cash now. They are bankrupt. This bomb dropped amidst those crazy Max Crosby trade talks, essentially destroying every hope of our front office, swinging a mammoth superstar deal. Immediately, one extremely critical question flared to life. Did the insider imply official salary cap room, or literal liquid money from the ownership? Since these represent two entirely distinct disasters, and just one vanishes after a quick phone call. Chicago might seem financially cornered right now, but do not count them out just yet. Tweaking the contracts of merely 9 guys could magically unlock nearly $60 million in breathing room. Reworking Montez Sweat instantly yields roughly $10 million. Factor in Joe Thuney providing $7.6 million and Jonah Jackson clearing $6.9 million. The hidden capital exists, provided management pulls the trigger. However, Windy City Gridiron analyst Bill Zimmerman completely flipped the script, insisting that Adam Schefter was never discussing the salary cap. Instead, he claimed the real issue revolves entirely around raw cash limits, the hard currency George McCaskey allocates to Ryan Poles heading into the spring, a strict financial boundary that Chicago has supposedly shattered already. Moments later, ESPN 1000 host David Kaplan fired back, reporting that his insiders confirmed Schefter meant the cap constraint exclusively, adding that ownership stands ready to write a blank check if Poles spots a blockbuster acquisition. What is the actual truth here? When you look at raw league expenditures, Chicago ranks a mediocre 19th among all 32 franchises. They are hardly impoverished, yet they are definitely not operating like high rollers. Throw in a massive impending contract for Caleb Williams alongside an incredibly murky stadium saga, and the ultimate reality is likely a harsh truth fans refuse to swallow. Yet beyond the balance sheets, a glaring void haunts this depth chart, one that pure cash simply cannot patch over. Look closely at the ultimate victors across the past 4 title runs, and a singular thread unites them all. Spoiler alert, it was absolutely not an elite signal caller or a highlight reel pass catcher. It was a truly terrifying force anchoring the defensive interior. Los Angeles unleashed Aaron Donald in 2022, while Kansas City rode the unstoppable wave of Chris Jones for consecutive rings. Philadelphia unleashed pure destruction by attacking guards with a fearsome trio of Jalen Carter, Milton Williams, and Jordan Davis, all at once. Even Seattle completely fortified their defensive guts last season by unleashing Byron Murphy alongside Leonard Williams. A relentless rush from the inside alters the entire geometry of a football game. That internal push shatters the pocket long before outside rushers even arrive. It obliterates passing rhythms instantly and transforms a basic 2nd and 6 into an absolute horror show for play callers. At this exact second, Chicago entirely lacks that kind of game-breaking monster. Just stare at the current depth chart, it paints a painfully inadequate picture. Gervon Dexter provides a decent presence, but he is hardly striking fear into opposing centers. Unsurprisingly, rumors erupted during the scouting combine, hinting he could be shipped out via trade. Though desperation and a severe lack of depth will likely force Chicago to retain him, those whispers loudly broadcast exactly what management thinks of his ultimate potential. Meanwhile, Grady Jarrett offers competent reps but battles Father Time constantly, virtually guaranteeing his departure once this current campaign concludes. Past that duo, you are crossing your fingers on Shamar Turner and Dayo Odeyingbo, 2 battered athletes attempting to bounce back from serious ailments with absolutely zero timeline for peak recovery. Snagging veteran mercenaries like Neville Gallimore and Kentavious Street definitely threw more warm bodies into the rotation, yet neither of those guys possesses the ferocious trench power required to violently take over a brutal postseason clash when January arrives. Defensive guru Dennis Allen demands absolute pandemonium roaring through the heart of the offensive line. He desperately craves a dynamic 3-technique tackle who specializes in violent backfield invasions, shattering plays instantly, and terrorizing passers into panicked, game-losing decisions before their cleats even plant on the final step of a dropback. You will not find that caliber of assassin scouring the remaining open market, but a legendary disruptor could be lurking among the collegiate ranks, desperately waiting for Chicago to announce his name at Selection 25. Fortunately, a singular rookie perfectly embodies this exact level of backfield devastation. Furthermore, Ryan Poles boldly admitted he chased Max Crosby in talks with Las Vegas, proving this regime refuses to quietly stand pat. The front office is aggressively working the phones and hunting for blockbuster deals. Right now, the trading block boasts explosive talent capable of radically reshaping Chicago's identity well before summer practices launch. Miami's electric weapon, Devin Bush, arguably sparks the most intrigue. This absolute blur torched defenses for 1,350 yards on the ground recently, while snagging almost 150 targets across the past 2 campaigns. The moment his hands secure the rock, you hold your breath. He is a terrifying touchdown threat, capable of snapping the game wide open in a heartbeat. Given that the Dolphins are currently slashing their payroll aggressively, flipping a valuable second-round draft asset their way might actually steal him. Flipping over to the defense, New York's Kayvon Thibodeau stares down the barrel of his 5th-year option, carrying a cap burden of approximately $14 million. He never quite matched the astronomical expectations of a top 10 selection, yet he remains an incredibly dangerous edge rusher, flashing tremendous untapped potential. Surrendering a 3rd-round asset while securing a late-round sweetener in return seems like a genius bargain for a high-octane, 1-year mercenary who drastically elevates the perimeter pass rush. Do not ignore Moro Ojomo in Philadelphia either. This fierce young tackle generated an insane 49 hurries alongside 6 quarterback takedowns last year. Those metrics represent top-tier interior dominance. Considering the Eagles are destined to back up the Brinks truck for Jalen Carter's looming astronomical mega deal, Ojomo might be surprisingly easy to pry away if the compensation is compelling. Pulling the trigger on any of these scenarios radically elevates Chicago's firepower. However, executing a swap requires sacrifice. Before fresh superstars can don the navy and orange, management will inevitably have to banish a few beloved veterans to clear the runway. Forging a championship squad frequently demands the brutal reality of cutting ties with talented guys who simply clash with the franchise's evolving tactical vision. This exact harsh reality is staring T.J. Edwards right in the face today. He brought undeniable grit, stellar tackling, and sheer brutality to Chicago's linebacker room. Yet this defensive scheme no longer values heavy, downhill brawlers. The new era demands sideline-to-sideline missiles capable of blanketing the turf. Management already imported Devin Bush and reunited with DeMarco Jackson, 2 absolute burners. Meanwhile, Edwards is recovering from a shattered leg while carrying 2 expensive seasons on his contract. Imagine a ravenous franchise like Dallas, practically begging for linebacker reinforcements all spring, flipping a 5th-round choice to inherit him while granting Chicago a massive $6.2 million in savings. That is not surrendering an asset. That is brilliant, cutthroat team building. Then consider Tyreek Stevenson, an explosive former 2nd-round talent who repeatedly flashed brilliance but ultimately failed to conquer his own volatile inconsistency. Throughout certain phases last year, he dominated like an unquestioned shutdown island. Then came the agonizing slumps where the staff outright benched him, preferring backups even when Jalen Johnson and Nahshon Wright looked incredibly vulnerable. Had the organization truly trusted his development, his cleats would have been permanently glued to the grass during those critical, game-deciding moments. Look at Kansas City. They just suffered the devastating twin departures of Trent McDuffie and Jalen Watson, leaving their secondary utterly starved for capable bodies. Shipping Stevenson out for a late-round commodity instantly pockets $4.1 million, blasting the door wide open for hungry young predators like Terrell Smith and Za Frazier to wage war for starting reps. None of this stems from sentimentality. These represent cold, ruthless maneuvers from a regime prioritizing raw velocity, lethal adaptability, and limitless ceilings over blind loyalty to past draft investments. Should Chicago successfully free up that financial room, their master plan for Selection 25 becomes undeniably clear. This single choice holds the power to shape their entire spring. Every calculated maneuver they have executed leads right here to a lone selection, a specific role, and a singular identity continually dominating every projection tied to this storied franchise. Behold, Clemson powerhouse Peter Woods, standing 6'2", 310 pounds, and tearing up an insane 4.86 40-yard sprint. That blistering velocity defies all logic for an interior lineman. He erupts from the line of scrimmage, wielding devastating hand techniques. Furthermore, he commands that 3-technique alignment with the exact terrifying ferocity Dennis Allen demands from his trench warriors. Shatter the line, create absolute chaos, and crush the pocket internally before the passer even sets his feet. Renowned experts like Brad Biggs and Bucky Brooks continually foresee his arrival in the Windy City. Brooks himself painted him as an interior juggernaut, noting how his elite agility, sheer quickness, and relentless strikes could unlock entirely new dimensions for a defensive mastermind. This is no mere backup. This man is a foundational pillar. Naturally, certain supporters might bring up Caleb Banks, that towering 6'6", 336-pound Florida behemoth who absolutely terrorized the Senior Bowl recently. On a mere stat sheet, the guy appears completely unstoppable. Yet a massive red flag looms. He shattered his foot during combine drills, forcing doctors to surgically repair his fourth metatarsal. That exact same injury plagued his 2025 collegiate campaign with the Gators, sidelining him for nearly 8 agonizing weeks. Rolling the dice on a mammoth athlete suffering chronic leg issues is a reckless gamble this management regime must strictly avoid. Whispers also surround Caden McDonald, though experts predict he will vanish from the draft pool long before the 25th slot opens. Consequently, this phenom falls perfectly into Chicago's lap. This glorious collision of talent and scheme easily represents the most flawless union of the entire opening round. Should Ryan Poles secure this warrior, fuse him with recent veteran signees, and strike just one aforementioned blockbuster deal, making the playoffs becomes a minimal expectation, this franchise instantly transforms into an absolute championship hunting machine.